This time, we've got the queen nailed down. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends. And a few hours ago, I released a video where I showed my theory crafting on what I was working on for the event dungeon. And with a little bit of work and actually some help from some commenters, which unfortunately I privated the video because the video was not a 100%. I decided I'm going to post a new one. So I apologize to anyone who commented on that video with ideas that have helped me to this. But with a little bit of tweaking, I've actually managed to come up with a 100% team. Now, this is not an easy accessible team. It requires 2 newts, although you certainly could use instead a Marius instead of one of the newts, but there's going to be some different changes to that as well. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to go over it, and I'll show you the speeds, show you what speeds you're kind of looking for, and show you how the team breaks down. So just to quickly re-go over the Queen of Hearts here, she has an AoE attack with decreased defense. She has a removes all buffs from all enemies, then places Death Brand and True Fear on everybody. This is the problematic skill because that True Fear can lock a bunch of people out if you can't block it, and because she cleanses, you have to figure out a way to get around that. Honestly, you probably need either a high resistance champion or the champion we're using for this particular team as well. So there's a couple different options for that. Finally, she does an ally attack, and this is why you're going to need a control champion. Meanwhile, every 10 buffs, she gets an extra turn, so you do have to be careful giving her extra turn with excessive buffs. Now, if you've stunned everybody else, it's probably fine, but you do need to be careful because she can take a few extra turns and disrupt your team if you're not careful. So you want to use as few buffs as possible if you can avoid it. Finally, she's got all the other boss stuff, immune to decreased speed, immune to control. You get awakening level, damage increases and decreases as well, so awakenings can be very important. The good news is this is a stage 30 team. I was able to build stage 29 teams that were slower and were 100%. So it really is stage 30 where she gets a bunch of speed boost, and it is definitely difficult here. So looking at the team that we have here, Kaja is the fastest on this team. You want to be over 300 speed to be faster than Kaja. The Queen's around 265, I think 270 is actually, I think, where she sits at, from what I've been able to test here. And there's some other, to be fair, there's a few other things here with the temporal chains. There's a little bit of turn meter shenanigans going on with both champions as well. But here we have the team that we're using. We're using Lady Noelle, we're using Double Newt, we're using Kymar, and we are using Shamail. Now, going to the team setup here. All right, so in the team setup here, we can see that Lady Noelle is 304 speed. I don't actually have any masteries on her. The build is more important. She's got almost 600 accuracy. She is prioritizing her AoE freeze, which is also her revive, but it's the AoE freeze that we're worried about. This can be any sort of AoE stun. It helps that they are the fastest champion. They need to be over 300 speed. You're going to need enough accuracy for this dungeon, so 550 is probably good. Maybe 500 might be good enough. I don't know if we actually have the numbers yet for the accuracy for this dungeon, but 500 to 550 was for the previous event dungeon we had. Both newts are around 260-ish speed. Kymar is slower than both newts because he needs to reset them after they both go. And honestly, Shamail doesn't need to bother taking a turn. Shamail is there to make sure that nobody gets feared. If you are going to use a cleanser instead, your cleanser needs to be faster than both newts. So if I had a cleanser here, and it could be any cleanser that does a buff, it could be a cleanser that doesn't do a buff as well. So you could use Elva, you could use Freya, you could use Mithrala. She would have a high enough resistance. Mithrala would be actually a pretty easy one to build, other than that you get extra buffs out of the boss as well, so that could be a problem. But overall, any debuffer or debuff cleanser would be helpful for this. I like Shamail because it means that I don't have to worry about anybody getting stunned at all or feared at all, because he's always going to keep those fears off. And then finally, as I said, Kymar resets everybody, gets a turn meter boost, and then the newts go. Noelle will refreeze everybody again to make sure the controls are kept, and then the newts take care of the job. So let's go and run through this, and you can take a look and see how the team runs. There's the freezes. There's the fears. Shamail cleanses them off. And to be fair, that does slow things down a little bit, but it's a little extra damage that you get out of this as well, which means that the newts could maybe miss a little bit of damage if there's an issue. Good news is my last newt, who's also in Relentless, which is interesting. He has the Reaper, so he should actually clean up the queen if it comes to it. So now those extra turns on newt, minor problems for slowing this down, but not going to cause a problem here. There's the next Blessed Bash, and then we have the final Blessed Bash from this newt, and down goes the queen. So as you can see, we controlled them the best we possibly could. You do have to be very careful with that control as well, because there is a Cupidus-Venus pair, so Cupidus and Venus will counterattack as well. I actually appreciate that too, because they have the hearts motif and the card motif as well, so it definitely made some sense to have the champions with the Queen of Hearts that they did, and that's how it runs. Is this team going to be easily accessible for a lot of people? No, probably not. Can you downscale this quite a bit? Yes, you can use any control champion, and Odin would be great. Armands would probably work. The big problem with Armands and the big problem with a lot of the stun champions is you need a 100% stun that is going to be spirit affinity. Honestly, spirit affinity what you need, because you have spirit and force champions and void champions on the other team. So if we actually go take a look at this here, so we do not have any magic champions on this team, so a force affinity does not work very well. But you do have Timid here, who is force affinity, so if you have a non-magic stunner, it needs to be void. Sorry, a non-spirit stunner, it needs to be a void. So that is where Lady Noelle came in. I didn't have her doing anything at the moment, so I built her super fast, super high accuracy. Not a particularly great build for anything other than this dungeon, but it was an easy champion for me to use for this dungeon. So there you go. You can certainly scale this down quite a bit. Again, you can use a cleanser of any kind instead of Shamail as well. You don't have a Kymar. Well, other reset champions are certainly going to be effective and helpful in this if you're trying to speedrun it. If you are not trying to speedrun it, then you're probably going to need to be trying to do a lower level difficulty or figure some other way to get an extra max HP hit. Maybe if you had a third newt, for example, or something like that. But again, I realize that that is asking an awful lot for people to have 3 newts to do this particular content. So hopefully that at least it gives you some idea for this dungeon. I'm sure we will get other teams. I'm sure I will end up doing takeovers where we will talk about other teams on other floors. Floor 20 is significantly more accessible than this. In fact, I was pretty much able to walk up to floor 30 with a team I had generated previously on this video and had no issues other than on floor 30. So doing less than floor 30 shouldn't be too bad. And honestly, if you get to floor 25, 26, 27, that's amazing. Even floor 20 is worth farming on this dungeon. So appreciate you guys hanging around. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. And I thank you guys for bearing with me while I had a team up that was not a 100% team, but you guys are awesome helping me finish up crafting that. And hopefully this team helps you get through the event dungeon. So until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.